Well, let's get started then. I'm going to start with the Jewish temple versus modern day church. Thank you, Stacia, for that topic. All right. I think I don't need the screen for this one. The Jewish temple versus the modern day church. So I think that to me, when you mention this, it just brings to my mind, what are the corollaries, the similarities between the two? So if we think about how the Jews view their temple, I mean, you kind of have to go back in time, don't you? Like modern Jews, they want to build their temple really badly. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you know about this, Stacia, or anyone else on the chat, but the Jews have even begun to build underground places. They're underground in Jerusalem that look temple-like and have areas for doing temple-based worship and I think some sacrificial stuff and all this weird stuff, and it's underground. Have you heard of that or seen it? I've seen very little bit about it, but it exists. There's underground places in Israel and in Jerusalem where they are. It's almost like they're prepping for the building of the new temple if they can ever do it, which I don't believe they're going to do it. Or if they did, I believe lightning would come out of the sky. So the Jews are all about their temple. Like the Jews, the way that they see the Torah, the Mosaic law, and the relationship to the temple, I mean, just in the way that, what happened in 70 AD, God destroyed the temple. Do you know what that did to them? I think it can't be overstated, the effect that had on their religion, because everything in the law was tied up into the temple. If you look at any of their feasts, their special days, their sacrifices, it all had to do with coming to the temple. That's one of the reasons that I have a problem with people that try to say that they somehow are fulfilling Mosaic law today. You have Christians and Messianic Jews alike that say they're still fulfilling the law. Well, no, you're not. The temple was the law. The temple was a part of every practice of the law. There's no way you can fulfill it right now, period. And that's the malfunction of the Jews too. They cannot fulfill the law in their temple right now. And they know it, but they make excuses, just like, Christians who follow the Torah, they make excuses as to why it is valid and they've got to fulfill the law and they can do it all except the sacrifices. They can do it all except the, the tabernacles. They can do it all except, right? Where there is no scripture anywhere that says that fulfilling the law can accept, and not do parts of it and still fulfill it. It's not possible. So I guess all that just to say that the Jews are super tied into their temple. Super tied, like it is important. It is pivotal to them being able to worship appropriately. And without it, I believe they are a lost religion. They are not lost in the sense of salvation necessarily, but I'm just saying they are wandering. They don't know where to plant their religion because they still base it on the Mosaic law, which is tied up in the temple. So the way that I compare that, I guess, to the modern church is people do, I think, have too much vested interest in the building of the church, in the sanctuary, the pulpit, and the altar of the church. Of course, the altar of the church is built, constructed, and thought of in relationship to the altar in the temple. What else would it have been based on? Right? So the funny thing is, this is interesting now that I'm thinking about it. Why do we build a church that has a, quote, altar in it when we know that Christ destroyed the temple and destroyed all of that in 70 AD? And we come and we kneel at the altar to pray in our modern churches. And we, we do have a lot of, in the modern Protestant Christian evangelical churches, a lot of ritual tied up in the building and the place, the altar, the podium, the sanctuary. We call it the house of God, don't we? We call the church building the house of God. That's interesting. I never thought of this. Stacia, you've brought something to me now that I'm just thinking about for maybe the first time, some of this stuff. We call the church building the house of God, which should have been a term for the Old Testament temple, correct? And it is inappropriate, I believe. I believe it's inappropriate to call the church of the modern day the house of God, other than the family of God congregates there, maybe. I mean, that might be a way in which it makes sense, but any parallels to me that parallel the way we treat the church building nowadays to the temple of the Old Testament is wrong. That seems wrong, doesn't it? It seems wrong because Christ said, I came to fulfill the law and the prophets. And then Christ came in the clouds and destroyed the temple in fire and ash and killed the priesthood in 70 AD. That's very interesting. It's very interesting to think about. Yes, Stacia, you say we are individually the temple. It does say in the New Testament, our body is the temple of God, right? I mean, so that makes sense. Perhaps our entire conception of the modern day church is wrong. I guess the apostolic church, they didn't use the buildings because they realized that the church was made up of people, that there was no more priesthood except Christ as the high priest for all of us. And so there was no need for a temple, no need for a building necessarily, or an altar, no need for any of that. Interesting too that churches modern day have a baptismal pool, and the ancient temple had a purification pool out front, and you would purify yourself or wash in the pool or in the water, the holy water there, and cleanse yourself. It's called mikvah, was a name for this. Some of the pools you would get into and baptize yourself. Essentially, that was mikvah. It was to clean yourself before going into the temple, to cleanse yourself. Even the Essenes and the Dead Sea Scrolls did this as a practice. They performed mikvah to cleanse themselves and stay pure and holy. It was part of the ritual of the temple. And so it's interesting that we have baptismals in our churches nowadays that represent, I mean, literally are a replication of the mikvah pools for the temple. Very interesting. Whereas all the writings of the early church fathers, by the way, talk about baptism and it needing to be done in what they call living or moving water, meaning a river or a stream or something in nature. And of course, the example we had in the New Testament of John the Baptist and his baptisms with Christ was in the River Jordan. So, wow, I don't know. The comparisons there get a little scary. I haven't even thought about this before, Stacia. So thank you for this topic. Man. Let me check your comments there. Rick Bowser, you say the sync is bad on your phone and computer today, and you're not sure why. It might be bad. I don't have anything happening different than normal, so I'll double check it after the fact, and maybe I can fix that for next time. C. Jones, it's good to have you this morning, and Tomcat, I see you there too. Good morning. Let's see. C. Jones, you've been saying for years the modern Christianity is a mini-me of Judaism. It's modern day Judaism. There's a lot of things that we parrot, don't we? We copy from Judaism that maybe we shouldn't. I mean, that seems to be what I guess is the rational end goal of what I'm saying, or end result, is that maybe we do mimic the Judaistic practices too heavily in the modern day church. Stacia, you say the modern church is tied up in numbers, tithing, and begging the Holy Spirit to come as if he isn't already with the believer. Yeah, that's a lot. You said a lot real fast there, Stacia. Yeah, that's true. I do think that another major problem in the church is the money aspect. You know, almost every church building out there that you will ever visit is a mortgaged building, and it is not paid for. We mortgage it. We get money from the money changers, the lenders. And in a lot of cases, those are in essence Jewish bankers that we get our money from to build our temples in the modern day. How weird is that? How ironic. And almost every church is in hock. The church model is to stay in hock as far as buying buildings and expansion. In fact, that's what they taught. Many of the church leaders of the past couple decades have taught the churches, the church leadership, and they're taught this in schools now too. They're taught in the schools of divinity. I can't think of a name. They're taught to expand like that. As soon as you're getting close to needing more building or more space, you take out a loan and you get it, because they'll say things like, healthy things grow. This is something they say all the time. I think it was Rick Warren that started that nonsense. Healthy things grow. So if you're growing, that means you need to go ahead and go into debt to get a new building, more space, more expansion. And what do they use? The prayer of Jabez and things like that to say you got to expand before, you act as if God is going to bless you, right? That's what they'll tell you. They teach you. You act as if he's going to bless you before you even, so it's okay to go into debt. It's okay to, go into hock up to your eyeballs, even when you have church members standing up and saying, no, we don't want to go into debt. We don't want to go do that. We don't want to pay your mortgage. I've been that guy in the church saying, I don't want to pay your mortgage, stop. But they still do it. They still do it because, the pastor's always right, and he was taught this way in religious school. And it's just amazing. I don't know, when you think about it from every angle, do you see how the infiltration has occurred and how it exists? The infiltration is complete. It just hasn't fully been fulfilled yet. That's why we're on our last breath to get rid of some of this corruption before, I think, the end. I mean, that's just my opinion. The infiltration is complete, though. Our churches are feckless, and I don't know what to say. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who may be listening here, but just about that very thing. Like, we couldn't figure out a reason to want to go back to the church building. Couldn't figure out a reason for it. There may be people there that you care about, but those people often, when they go there, they care about you on Sunday, and then on Monday they don't know who you are anymore. And they don't know you until the next Sunday. Then you come in the building again, and everybody knows you and loves you. It's just kind of weird and sad. Weird and sad. Squiffy Bear, good morning, ma'am. It is great to have you on here. Really good. C. Jones, is it possible that our version of Christianity is brought to us by the Jews? It is possible. In fact, I did that video a while back on Billy Graham and ecumenism. That I wanted that to be a series of videos. I just never got around to all of it. But it's truly, I believe, that is the vehicle by which they overtook our churches in the West. Ecumenism and cooperation between the Catholic Church, the Pope, and the organizational churches all over the place. From Southern Baptist to Pentecostal, everything else. It was, I believe, infiltration. There were specific people, men. Rick Schuler, then he taught people like Rick Warren, Rob Bell, or Jim Schuler, excuse me, I think it's Jim Schuler. He taught people like Rob Bell, Rick Warren, Bill Hybels. These guys are all connected whether you know it or not. And so they drove the church for the last 2-3 decades into the ditch we are in. And they did infiltrate our organizations, and they watered down our doctrines. And yeah. And so now you have, yeah, you have what you have. And I think, C. Jones, that you're on the right track here. I think you are correct, the things you're saying. Without beating that one over the head, I'll just say yes. So I don't know, did that help? I mean, I think, Stacia, you helped me hit something that's like really pertinent to the modern church and really needs to be considered by every Christian that's in a church, whether they will or not, who knows. Yeah. C. Jones, you say that the entire conference circuit is connected regardless of what they profess to believe. Yeah, I would believe that. I would say yeah. I don't know. Thanks for raising your blood pressure today. Yeah. Yeah, many are blind, Stacia. I don't know how to change that other than, I'm trying to do what I do. Is it bad that we've, some of us have removed ourselves from the church? Is it bad? I don't know. To me, that can be thought of as a problem. Like, okay, the ones of us who are thinking about these things and considering the possibilities are leaving the church instead of calling the church out from within. That to me can be a problem, but I don't know if the church is redeemable. It is controlled by the organizations within which it resides and the organizations to which it hands money month after month, week after week. International Mission Board. And I'm familiar with Southern Baptists because that's kind of where I came from, Southern Baptist Convention, all this other stuff. So I don't know if the organized church is redeemable. I was in the organized church and I was calling things out and it did no good. I will say that. It was scary, It was scary.